2, 1. All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Black Menaces podcast. I'm your host, Nate Bird. I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Mr. Sebastian
Stewart Johnson. Always government name here.
Always government name.
Always government name.
Always.
Feels right.
And we have an amazing guest here today with us, Mr. Maximiliano Coca.
Okay, come on, Spanish.
Yo, así mero.
Say what's up. We're excited to interview Max. Me and him go way back to 2019?
Yeah, just
Something
about,
that. Yeah,
huh?
we've known each other for
Yeah,
what was that, 4
good
years?
minute.
That's crazy.
Okay.
So we've known each other for a while. We met in a dancing group. Dancing and singing. Yeah. And so I love being able to talk with Max about like cultural things because like I bring my pro-Black viewpoint to things and you bring your pro-Latino viewpoint to things and like we can talk about it and it's always a good time. So,
it is a good time, honestly.
Yes, sir. Excited to talk more about that and just to learn more about you. But before we do that, you know what it is. We got our Menace moment. And this week, we're going to actually do someone that was suggested by my good friend Asher Head, who we interviewed on the last episode. He talked about a woman named Polly Murray. And we'll talk a little bit about why we're gonna highlight her today in the Menace moment. So Anna Pauline, or Polly Murray, was an American civil rights activist, advocate, legal scholar, and theorist and author. Her work influenced the civil rights movement and expanded legal protection for gender equality. She was born in Baltimore, Maryland on November 20th, 1910, and was raised in Durham, North Carolina by her aunt. At age 16, she moved to New York City to attend Hunter College and graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in English in 1933. In 1940, she sat in the whites-only section of a Virginia bus with a friend, and they were arrested for violating state segregation laws. This incident led her to pursue her career goal of working as a civil rights lawyer. She enrolled at Howard Law and was the only woman in her class. She graduated first in her class, but was denied the chance to do postgraduate work at Harvard because of her gender. She later coined a term to kind of name some of this prejudice against women. She called it Jane Crow, which I thought was dope. She earned a master's degree in law at the University of California, Berkeley, and in 1965 became the first African-American to receive a Doctor of Juridical Science from Yale Law School.
Come on.
After passing the California bar exam in 1945, she was hired as the state's first Black deputy attorney general in January of the following year. That year, the National Council of Negro Women named her its Woman of the Year, and Mademoiselle magazine did the same in 1947.
Let's go.
Yeah.
No, for real.
Murray was the first Black woman hired as an associate attorney at the Paul Weiss law firm in New York City and worked there from 1956 to 1960. She was the firm's second Black associate after Bill Coleman.
Wow.
As a lawyer, she argued for civil rights and women's rights. She wrote a book called States' Laws on Race and Color, and Thurgood Marshall referred to this book as the Bible of the civil rights movement. Which is high praise coming from someone like Thurgood Marshall, right?
From the Supreme Court. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Murray served on the Presidential Commission on the Status of Women under John Kennedy's appointment. She also co-authored the ACLU brief of Reed versus Reed with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, which was a landmark case surrounding gender discrimination. She also worked in the legislation, she also worked on writing the briefs for Brown versus Board of Education, which was argued by Thurgood Marshall, and was instrumental in desegregating schools. And then something unique about her, well, if all of this wasn't unique, we had something else cool. This is the reason why Asher suggested her. Her sexual identity and gender identity did not fit with the prevailing norms. She had a brief, annulled marriage to a man and several deep relationships with women. In her younger years, she occasionally had passed as a teenage boy. A number of scholars, including a 2017 biographer, have retroactively classified Murray as transgender. But obviously there wasn't really language for that in the 1910s when she was born or whatever. Right. She was an outspoken activist and at the forefront of civil rights movement, alongside such leaders as Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. She coined the term Jane Crow, which I mentioned earlier, and demonstrated her belief that Jim Crow laws also negatively affected African-American women. She was determined to work with other activists to put a halt to both racism and sexism. And that's actually something that I've become much more aware of in recent years. Bell hooks. Well, I think you put me on the bell hooks.
Bell hooks is crazy.
But she's something else. And I had never...
Immediate feminist after reading anything about her.
Absolutely.
Immediately.
So maybe that's the recommendation for this week is read some bell hooks in honor of Polly Murray. And read about Polly Murray too. But yeah, just like reading about that and realizing, oh yeah, like the civil rights movement was good, but it was still very like male dominant.
Mhm.
Like it was all about equality, but it was men running things,
Right.
and they weren't really concerned about like
At all.
equality for women. And I've
Mhm.
heard talk about, how Black women kind of had to choose between the civil rights movement and the suffrage movement,
Right.
and like the civil rights movement won.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I don't think that that's like something that's unusual. I'd imagine like in pretty much any movement,
Mhm.
that's going to be the norm.
Yeah.
Is that like women are going to take a back seat while equality rights or whatever, those things are taken care of, and then as an afterthought, maybe women become the focus, and that shouldn't be the case.
Right. Can I add something real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just about my favorite bell hooks.
Come on.
There's part of one of her books that I read. She talks. It was one of my favorite things actually. Is she calls out all the men in the civil rights movement. She calls out MLK.
Yep.
She calls out Malcolm X. The only person that she really couldn't call out was James Baldwin.
Yeah,
because James Baldwin was that
cool.
guy, and so and he was just so good. And she was like, okay, him, yeah, he was pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
But like she calls out all these men for like their misogyny, in different ways. Like so, like she mentioned specifically part of Malcolm X's book that was like very misogynistic. And so that's our dog. But like it's just very interesting. Anyways, read bell hooks immediately. She will make you a feminist overnight.
Absolutely. And yeah, you can check her books out at the local library. So
and you can.
Max, do you have anything you want to add before we go on?
No, this is super intriguing. I like, a lot more details, and I like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and this is like I'm educating myself here too, because I knew nothing about this.
No,
I had
for real.
never heard her name until Asher mentioned it last week, and then so now here I am. So listeners, take note. When you watch those interviews online and those people, they don't know the answers to these questions, this is how easy it is to get answers. I went to Wikipedia, and 1 week later, here I am learning about Pauli Murray. It's not hard. So all y'all in the comments defending these people, don't do it. Don't
Google
do it.
is free.
Right.
I Google it.
Extremely free. It's free 99. Okay. So I'm gonna end it out with a quote from her. She gave a speech in 1964 in Washington, D.C., and it was titled Jim Crow and Jane Crow, and it shed light on the long struggle of African-American women for racial equality and their later fight for equality among the sexes. She said, not only have they, referring to Black women, stood with Negro men in every phase of the battle, but they've also continued to stand when their men were destroyed by it. The Black women decided to continue standing for their freedom and liberty even when their men began to experience exhaustion from a long struggle for civil rights. These women were unafraid to stand up for what they believed in and refused to back down from the long and tedious battle. One cannot help asking, would the Negro struggle have come this far without the indomitable determination of its women?
And she said a word.
And that was very heavily paraphrased. But y'all need to look into some Pauli Murray, because she's inspiring.
Come on.
That is Pauli Murray. That's our Menace moment for this week. Hope y'all learned as much as I did.
That was a good Menace moment. That was solid. That was good.
Yeah. And you got the Menace moment next time.
Yeah. Period.
Cool. All right. And we're going to jump into our interview with Max. But before we do, I think you have a guest that you want to introduce.
Yeah, I do. How do I show it to the camera?
Just pick her up.
Yeah. It's my little puppy. Her name is Rhea. Yeah, look.
So Rhea, she goes with Max everywhere pretty much.
Yeah, she even sings with me.
Yeah. She's adorable. And if you hear her bark, just know that she's protecting all of us. But yeah, so Max, just to jump into it, just kind of tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, what you do, anything you want to share, and then we'll start jumping off with the questions.
Yeah, for sure. So mi nombre es Maximiliano Coca.
Come on.
And I was born and raised in Provo, Utah. I did move to different places. The next place we moved to was El Paso. I think I was like 7 years old. And then when I turned 8, we moved back to Utah, but then we moved back to New Mexico. So it was just like, we're just jumping all over the place. And then after New Mexico, we moved to Utah again, back to Provo. And then there was a moment where my parents wanted me to go to school in Mexico. So for middle school, we took a year over there, and my dad was working construction in Wyoming. So he took advantage of that traveling, getting paid a little bit more. Yeah. And the rest of our family moved to Chihuahua, Mexico. Oh, wow. So we had a little house there and went to school there. Then moved back to Provo, had high school here. I served a mission, LDS mission in North Carolina. So when you mentioned Durham, I was like, yo, Durham's the best. Like, I served there. So it was really cool. Cool experience. Great. You learn a lot, you know. And what else? I played trumpet. I've played trumpet since I was in 3rd grade.
That's cool.
Started singing after the mission. So that's what, you know, when you talk about passion, that's my passion. You know, I love to sing. I love to express who I am and who my people are through song.
That's cool.
So that's what I do. And yeah, just dreaming and getting things done. You know, that's a little bit about me.
Amazing. That's what's up, man. I love that.
That's amazing. No, I was just saying that's dope.
Yeah, that's cool. I actually didn't know you played the trumpet, so that's cool. I feel like maybe I don't know.
That's such a cool, unique skill as well.
And it got me, I loved it because when I was a kid, obviously I picked it just because it had 3 buttons. That's what I said.
That's
I was like, has 3 buttons, no big deal. Like I'm gonna figure this stuff out. Because before I wanted to play the saxophone, but they weren't available. So I was like, all right, I'll get on trumpet.
That's too many buttons anyway.
Yeah, too many, huh? But in high school, everything changed because that's where I got deeper into classical music, but also jazz. And a lot of our assignments were studying jazz artists. And I remember in school that a lot of the students, you know, it was really cool because all the students, basically, it was rare that you saw a person of color where I went to school. So, especially in band. So sometimes I felt like I was the only Mexican there, you know, but there were a few more, you know, and, but I got deep into jazz and studying jazz artists. Like, there's,
Miles Davis.
Miles Davis was one of my favorite ones. His album Kind of Blue. Freddie Freeloader. I had to learn that solo. Oh wow! So it was just like
that's cool.
And Miles Davis he's a cool cat. Like he's really cool. And there was also Clifford Brown. Clifford Brown was also one of the best trumpet players. I always felt like I loved listening to Arturo Sandoval because he was the only like Latino guy. I was like, yo, this guy's Latino. Like, let me get in on this, you know? And he was really good friends with like Dizzy Gillespie. And Dizzy Gillespie's wild. He's so good. You know, he's the one with the lifted up trumpet to a 45-degree angle. So sorry, Mike, I'm such a nerd.
No, you nerd out on it though.
You know, so but yeah, so I studied a lot of them and studied their lives, and you know, all this was underground. Like this was like the hip hop back in the day, and it was just like so cool seeing, you know, a lot of parents like give trash to the music nowadays, but they love listening to jazz. They love listening to all this stuff. I was like, yo, but that was like low key the hip hop. That was the underground stuff. Like that was the thing that was condemned that you shouldn't listen to. So, you know, it was really cool like studying that history behind it.
Absolutely,
that is cool. No, I just first off, that's dope. Playing trumpet and like the way that connects with jazz is just crazy. I feel like playing jazz is one of the most unique skills. Because it's such like a beautiful, but like it just intertwines. Anyways, that's a different rant. But
I feel like it's like the purest form of art.
It is.
Like
it's just
because it's literally you're coming up with it as you play it.
Straight improvise.
It's crazy. Yeah.
That's a different level of talent that I just don't have. I just don't have it. I was also gonna say it's also cool because you kind of made mention of like the representation aspect of the Latino artist. Like it's just cool, like little things like that, like seeing somebody that looks like you and is similar to you, it just changes your respect, viewpoint, and drive. And anyways, I just thought it was a cool thing to point out a little bit more.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, so that's a cool fact to learn. Max plays the trumpet. I'm gonna have to hear it sometime. I know you have an amazing voice. I've heard you sing, and every time I'm like, man, this dude right here, man. This is like when I was in Texas and I would see them like big old dudes in their lifted trucks just playing like banda music.
Yo, like, that's me, bro. That's me. You know, I'm peeling out, making a lot of smoke. Absolutely. You know, get my cut. That's what we say.
Love it. But if I could ask, just tell us a little bit more about like what it was like growing up Latinx in Provo. I guess in like the early 2000s.
Yo, so actually, I loved not trying to go back to jazz, but going back to jazz, that was a refuge for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I actually,
music is how I got through my childhood.
I skipped a lot of high school, and I actually didn't go to class, but I didn't do anything interesting. We just went out to eat as friends or play some video games, or I just skipped and went to the band room. You know, and it was just really cool, just like, because that was like a refuge for me, you know, where I could refuge in music. But growing up in Utah was, man, it was interesting. You know, I remember elementary school. That was the elementary school I grew up in was on the west side of Provo. There were a lot of people that came from California, so I was a little bit more comfortable there.
That's
Like
cool.
there were Mexicans, there were all kinds, you know, races, and we just had so many friends, and it was a good time. But just growing up, it was just interesting experience because after we moved from Franklin Elementary, I remember going to 3rd grade in Rock Canyon, and obviously a lot of people aren't going to know that, but
Right.
it's in the north part of Provo, and that was because my mom was a crossing guard. And you know, she was a crossing guard in that area, so she just decided to move us to that school. She's like, you know, it's probably a better school, better environment. My mom always told me, she's just, you know, because there were like gangs over there. Like I remember my uncle giving me like the spiel. I was like, bro, we're in Provo, like you kidding me? Like, you know, but anyways, growing up there, I actually didn't have a good experience there. It was all white. I was the only Mexican there. And I remember like one of the first moments I had was actually my teacher. We were in a parent teacher conferences, and it was just like all negative things, and like your son talks a lot, like he never pays attention in class, and I got the scolding from my parents, like you grew up colored, like you grew up good, like or you had like la chancla or whatever, you know what I'm saying, like, you know, and obviously the dad and the belt and oof, but
well,
but I did get a good discipline or whatever, you know, you call it, but it was just interesting because like I heard her talk to other families and other, like there were other kids that I hung out with, and they talked just as much as I did.
Yeah.
You know, and they did just as much as I did, and she just like praised them. And I always felt like, you know, why me? You know, what did I do wrong? You know, so it was, and that was just as a kid. I was innocent, but looking back, it's still like, you know, it's still like now I'm recognizing all that, and it's just like part of me. And so all those kids went to the same high school, and that's the high school I ended up going to. And that was, I'm not gonna lie, it just all started growing, and there was a point where I just felt ashamed of being Mexican. You know, and you meet if you meet a lot of my friends, or like Nate, you know me, like I'm one of those that doesn't give a crap, but like I blast my music, you know, and I'll let people know that the Mexicans in town, like, but there was a moment where I was ashamed, like the way they talked about, you know, immigrants in history class, and the title of just being illegal aliens is just like, you know, that's what I thought, you know, that's what I thought my people were. I thought you know, they called me in high school like dirty Mexican, even if they said it like innocently, like it still affected me. I still felt ashamed, you know.
Absolutely.
Or like even wetback. So you know, and even if it, you know, was threatening or non-threatening, just them calling me that, like, you know, I even had a guy come up to me one time, and he was in the band, you know, and he's like, you know, Max, I like you. You know, I like you. You're not like the other Mexicans. And I was just like, yeah, and I laughed it off. But I was just like, yo, like, you know, it was
internalize that stuff.
And it stays with you. And like, even though you try to laugh it off because you're trying to fit in, because at that time I didn't know who I was, you know, and I tried to be a person. Honestly, I try to be white, you know. There's no other like way to say it. And I was really ashamed of being Mexican. And it was other than that, like I did have a wonderful experience, like, you know, in school. And I think it was just like my biggest highlight was actually just the music part. You know, but that's how it was growing up. Like, you know, I was living two lives. Back at home, I had to speak Spanish. You know, that's where I listen to the music I'm going to listen to. When I'm outside, I'm listening to, you know, what was
Owl City.
Yeah, or what did I listen to in high school? It was like Coldplay, Muse. Even though I like them, but they're hella white, bro.
Right? Yeah,
I haven't heard the name Muse in forever.
And then back in the day, I had a neighbor, and he was like hella into punk, so it was just like Green Day, getting into like Pierce the Veil, Panic at the Disco, just like. But I mean, I did have all those cool phases that actually helped me out in music, and is helping me out right now in music. So I could see how God changes difficult circumstances and hard circumstances into huge strengths later on, like with listening to music. And I just go back to music because that was just a big refuge of mine. I listened to so many things. I was able to express emotions through so many things, and it was a good refuge for me.
That's cool.
So that's how it was, growing up. And
I was just thinking about while you were talking, because I was talking about this the other day, how like a slow degradation of yourself by other people is still like equally or potentially more traumatizing than one instant of a thing. You know what I mean? Like being like degraded in your individual identity every day plays such a large toll on you, and you don't even sometimes recognize until later on. You're like, wow, like being called X, Y, or Z every single day and having to laugh it off, because how else are you going to defend yourself when you're the only like person of color in the room? In your case, you're the only Mexican person in the room, and everybody's laughing at you. So what else do you do besides try to laugh too, because you can't fight everybody, and you're a child, and so your child's psyche can't even mentally comprehend what's actually occurring. Anyways, I'll just talk about this slow degradation though, because it's so real and it hits you so hard, and sometimes you don't realize it's hitting you until you get to a point of like, man, like what the fuck is going on? And you're like, oh well, for the last 10 years of my life, you know what I mean? So
that point happens when you're about to blow up on everything.
Yep.
You're hitting a lot of bad, and that's not good. And another good. I was just thinking another refuge, and I don't want to make it sound like I was the only Mexican in my high school, but there were a lot. But it wasn't like in each individual class. Sometimes you were the only one.
For sure.
Does that make sense?
No, absolutely.
But it was cool to also know that you weren't alone, but you had those, that you had your friends. But I also, it was just so divided. Like the Polynesians had their section, the Mexicans had their section. Obviously the white people were just all centered around. And, it was, you could see a lot of friends groups changing. Like you see some kids, like they're hanging out with the Mexican kids, and now they're hanging out with the white kids. Now they don't even talk. And it's just like, and sometimes I felt like I was one of those. And, but yeah, just
that's real. Do you feel like looking back, and there's no right answer, but do you feel like looking back that has presented pain inside of you of like, man, like I, was separate from my group of people for a time period, or, like how does that, when you look back at it, does that, what feelings does that create? You know what I mean?
Yo, it's all feelings.
Yeah.
It's feelings of anger, feelings of guilt too, regret.
Absolutely.
And but like looking back, I can't deny I also did have a good time, because in those moments you don't recognize how much it is really, really affecting you until you have that identity crisis. And I know a lot of people go through it, especially when they're turning more like 18, 19 of who am I? Why am I here? What am I getting done? And that's where it really hits you. But yeah, it just brings all those emotions. There was a point where like I just hated white people.
That's real.
And it was after like me recognizing all this stuff, and I needed to obviously calm down, and start over, and start loving, but also not taking away of the pain that I did feel. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And standing up for now what I believe in, and protecting who I need to protect.
Yep.
And my identity, who I am, where I come from, is a big part of what I need to protect. So, and that's why I say, like, it brought me down that much, and it gave me pain, it gave me anger, it gave me anguish. I suffered from depression, and a lot of it was because of that. You know, I you know, even after the mission, I did have problems with like suicide and just like those thoughts, and they get to you. And a lot of that had to do with like me not, I never knew who I was when I was a kid. I tried to live two lives, like, you know, and it just, you get to that point where you're just like, you want to break.
Yeah. No, heard. That's very valid, very real. Like, yeah, I think it's interesting because it's like most people of color and Black people I've spoken to about identity crisis, or just honestly about like facing racism, there's always that, and Nate has talked about this too, there's that point you reach where it's like, wow, I can't stand any of you. And it's not because you individually did anything to me, you as a person, but it's like, as a group, my whole life, I feel like I'm looking back and all I see is pain, you know? And it's like, you have to kind of find this segue of, I have so much anger, but figuring out how to use it, you know what I mean? And also how to heal from it. And it's a very hard thing. And I don't know if it doesn't just happen in an instant, right? It's a progression over time, but it's so very real though. Like that phase. And I talked about it today on my Instagram actually, which is, I think it's kind of funny because somebody asked me like, okay, what is the best advice for supporting a Black friend? And I think this goes for most, you know, just people of color in general, is I put like, first, just listen to them. I was like, even if they say, I can't stand white people right now, just hear them out. Yeah. Because first off, it probably has nothing to do with you because they're talking to you about it. And so I just was like, you know, even if somebody says that exact phrase, know that like, it's not coming from a place of anger. It's coming from a place of pain, really. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not like, I hate you individually because you suck. No, it's coming because they are hurting so much. Anyways, it's just interesting. I talked about that today.
No, yeah, absolutely. And you're going to hear most people of color say something along those lines.
For
like,
sure.
Oh, white people, I hate white people. I can't stand white people, right? And yeah, it's not like specifically we hate this one individual person. Like, we understand that there are plenty of good white people out there, but we also understand that white people have been a significant source of pain for people of color.
Right.
Not just in our own personal lives, but like throughout the history of the world. And we carry that history with us.
Right.
But I wanted to kind of bring up this. I wrote a paper on this in college, and I've talked about it before, but I looked it up now. It's the stages of racial identity development. And you've heard me talk about this before too, but I think it's so applicable here because there's kind of like these different stages, right? So you start off with ethnic awareness, which is basically just like neutral feelings or positive feelings about all ethnic groups, little exposure to prejudice. That's like when you're still very small. And then there comes a point where like you realize that you're different, right? And then when that happens, you're like, oh, I'm different. I don't want to be different in that way. So then you start to assimilate. And so like the second stage is assimilation to dominant culture. You view white people as positive, and then you have like a negative viewpoint towards other ethnicities, maybe including yourself or your own. And it may not necessarily be like a conscious thing. That could easily be a subconscious thing, like things that you internalize, which I definitely experienced. And sound like you experienced that too, Max. And I mean, pretty much every person of color, right?
Happens, right?
And then there's like a socio-political awakening, which is where you start to have those negative views toward white people, and you start to become like more positive towards other ethnicities or other, groups of color. And then there's the pan-ethnic consciousness, which is like partiality towards your own ethnicity or identity. And then ethnocentric realization, where you view yourself and other communities of color as empowering. And then there's incorporation, which is where you like learn to kind of like separate parts of your identity and learn to like work with white people, I guess, in a way. And so, and then, once you do that, then it kind of goes into like the self-actualization kind of thing, where it's like you start to kind of like reach out. Once you kind of get away from that internal like struggle, then you start to reach out and do other things. And so you see people like, civil rights activists or people, who were on the front lines, they've kind of reached that point of like being able to go outward, and like they've won that internal struggle, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, like with Black Ministers, I think that's part of what we've done is like we've taken that internal struggle and started to like push it outward.
Yeah, and I think it's super important to, especially like educate through our personal experiences, you know.
Absolutely.
And you know, one of the things too is just like also remembering, because obviously, yeah, the majority of it was like pretty bad experiences, but there were also good ones, you know, that I had great experiences. Like, you know, one of our neighbors, when we moved to Provo, back to Provo, this guy was a bishop in the LDS ward. We didn't know, and my dad at the time just left New Mexico. And my dad hated white people too. Like he's just leaving that experience. He hated white people, and especially working in construction, it's a dog world there. Like you know, it's they fight, it's everything. So it's and but it was just an interesting experience because that bishop called him to be a counselor in the ward. We were gonna go to the Spanish ward or whatever, and he he got called as bishop in a completely English ward. My dad didn't speak any English. He denied it. Like he didn't even want to get his citizenship till like 2 years ago because he was scared about Donald Trump. So he was just like, I'm gonna get my citizenship, bro, because he's been living on just residency. But anyways, it was this was another crazy experience. We remember when they were sustaining him. We sat in the back corner. I still remember this, and they just said, "Hey, we want to sustain Youre Coca, that's my dad's name. We want to sustain him as a second counselor in the bishopric." And we just stand up, like the whole family stands up. He made us all stand up because nobody should be him, but that's my pops. Like, you know, we all stand up, you know. But then you just hear this huge gasp. And it's just like it was so interesting. But that was my dad's moment to be outward.
Right.
And he educated a lot of people's thoughts about who we are as people, as Mexicans, and all that stuff changed. And now growing up in that neighborhood, like they love us, you know, and they love, you know, and it was just cool seeing my dad take that experience, take that hate, do an outward thing and educate people, let them know who we are. And you know, and I think that's important, especially in Utah, because people are cultured, you know, here in the and you know, that's it causes problems. You know, they're just stuck in that bubble. And oh man, but yeah, that was just an experience, just remembering that, to remember those good experiences too, because it'll help you out in the future, because when you want to be outward, you want to touch everybody, you know. And I think that's a super important thing. And I feel like I'm at that point now too, like especially this year. I made it a goal to myself to prove it to that little brown kid, you know, and obviously that little brown kid is me, you know, and it starts out with me, but it's also proving it to that little black kid, to that little Asian kid, you know. There's a quote Joe DiMaggio said. He says, "There's a kid out there in the stands looking at me. I owe him my best." You know, Kobe Bryant said the same thing when Vanessa Bryant was saying, "My husband never missed a game." You know, he hated missing games. You know, even if he was injured, he dislocated a hand, a finger, or whatever, he played. And she's like, because somebody, especially a kid, is paying money to see me play. You know, and I feel that, and I know y'all do too. It's just like, there's a little kid out there, you know, that he's looking at me and he's like, yo, he's my color, you know, or she's my color. And they're doing it. That's my hero. Like, you know, and it gives them that light that, you know, you're not alone in this, and we're, you know, together we can make it happen. And being that example, I think that's what fuels me, you know, and
it's real.
And it's awesome.
I love that. Yeah. I was thinking about what you were talking about. And I think too, is like interesting that like you can kind of go through those, I think you go through the stages and kind of like circle back to certain ones at certain moments, right? Like, I know for me, I think I'm circling back at the current moment. I'm not going to lie. And
it's not a linear journey.
Like,
it's not.
Yeah,
it just goes around, and you're just jumping around. And I remember the other day, like maybe a month or two ago, I don't remember. I remember I was really contemplating giving up activism. I didn't even tell you, Nate, this, Nate. I was just like, man, this shit is tiring.
It's emotionally draining
and
too.
I was just like, I don't know. And this was like right after the stuff that happened with the harassment stuff for me. And so especially I was like, okay, I'm cool. This has been fun. I think I'm gonna hang my hat up. Like, I think I'll just do something else. And then I was out and about, and this person came up to me and for like 5 minutes straight just told me like how grateful they were for me and like how I had helped them and da-da-da-da-da. And then I was like, okay, maybe I'm not done. You know what I mean? Because it was that moment of like, somebody is seeing themselves in you and like how that can positively impact them. Like one of the only reasons I'm an activist, I would say, is because I watched other, like Black and brown people growing up be like, well, okay, like, so we could stand up or we could fight back or we could lead. But it's just very interesting because I feel like in my personal life, as I wanted to give up, somebody that was watching me is the reason I didn't end up stopping activism. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's all very interesting how I think it all intertwine and how the stages go back. I would say, I'm circling back right now. But anyways,
for me, my little brother is my hero. So I prayed 16 years for this guy to be born. So I grew up with 3 sisters, and it was just he looks at me, he's like, dude, you're like my hero, you're my champion. And I'm cool. Just like, I'm a piece of shit, like, and another thing that I was just thinking on, and that goes back to that like identity, who I am, and the circling, which, by the way, sometimes obviously it doesn't feel linear, and we're circling and we're going sideways and this, but we're progressing. And accepting that is a beautiful thing to grow. Is that right. When you're working out muscles, you're tearing those, you're getting torn apart, and it's interesting. But one of the things was I was going back to, it all starts out with the home. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, obviously, at school and all that stuff, I had it was you do have problems with the culture and all that stuff, but it was also growing up. Since I had 2 lives, I had my Mexican side. Like, you grow up in a Mexican household, and my dad, just to say it in a few words, like, he disciplined me well, and a discipline that affected me, and traumatized me too. Growing up, it was, even if I heard the name Maximiliano, I had shivers down my spine. To this day, I still do, and it was my dad. Yeah, he was a loving dad, super loving, but also it was hard too, because he was like that, like a football coach. He always tells you the opposite for you to get mad and succeed, kind of thing. But for me, that's not how it worked. It brought me down even worse. And now I'm just like growing up with that, always never thinking I was good enough for my father. And you get to that point where you just break, and then that adds up with the problems that you're already dealing with in school, and you're just like, man, and I know a lot of people, especially people of color, relate to that, especially a household it's difficult to live in. There are moments, but one thing I do love about my family is that we work through it. We're working through it. We obviously have our problems, but we work through it, and we've grown a lot as a family. But one of those things is because us as kids started having our voice, and there was a moment where I was going through just heavy depressions, and had an interesting experience in New York, because I was living in New York at the time. But I had a buddy that just told me, he's like, dude, I'm the last person that should tell you this, but I think you should move back to Provo and kind of amend things with your dad.
Wow.
And because before that, we had a fight. We were about to throw hands, and it was just hard, because like my mom had to get in it, and anyway, I told him, I was just like, you're just not going to talk to me like that anymore, And it was the first time I stood up for myself. And maybe the situation wasn't correct, I don't know, but I stood up for myself.
Right.
Right. And going back, when I went back, I knocked the door, went back in, and first person I talked to was my father. And I told him, hey man, like, I'm not gonna lie to you. You're one of the main reasons why I have depression. You're one of the main reasons why, I even never thought I was good enough and never felt like I was loved. And I felt suicidal. I wanted to commit that, and I just opened up to him. I was just like, I never felt like I could add up to you. I never felt like I can live up to your expectations. You grow up Mexican, you have to be hard. You can't break an ankle. You walk it out. You know, I learned what hard work is, you know, like real hard work. And you just can't complain. You can't express those emotions. So when I was telling them this, like, it was relieving just letting all that out, you know, and letting him know that. But at the same time, right after I spilled all that, I told him something, and I told him, but you know what? At the end of the day, it's all my fault. And I really owned up to myself on that. And what I mean by that is I told him it's all my fault because I let you affect me. And I let those negative words and those negative memories affect the outcome of how my emotions are going to be, how my mental health is going to be. And I told him there, and I set that boundary. I'm not going to let that happen anymore. You know, and that's something that's helped me grow. That's something that's helped me love even more. You know, after that, my father and I had a great relationship. Like we were friends. Now I saw him as a man. I saw him, you know, I understood his father was worse than him, you know, and we found a mutual grounding, but I also let him know my boundary. You know, I let him know, like, you know, anything you say to me is not going to affect me anymore if it's in a negative way. Like, I respect you. Like, I've learned so much from you. You know, you're the one that taught me how to work. My mother taught me why I work, you know, and y'all taught me so much to be the best man I can be, you know, and thank you for this opportunity. But at the same time, there's imperfections in everything, you know, and that was one of the big ones that we grew up as a family there. And I'm grateful for that. You know, we still have our struggles, you know, I still have my struggles with my pops, but I love him, you know, and I'm grateful for him. But it wasn't until that moment that it helped me out with everything else. You know, it helped me out with my relationship, even with white people, being around them, you know, and because it was hard, but it also helped me also set that boundary of who I am. Like, you know, Selena's dad told her, Selena, you got to be more Mexican than the Mexicans and more American than the Americans, because they're not going to accept you. They're going to call you gringos. Like, I went to school in middle school in Mexico, like I told y'all, they called me gringo over there. Because I was born here, you know, they don't accept you, you know, and then you're here and you're just like, they don't accept you either. You know, they want you deported, you know, they don't want you here. So it's just like, man, so now I'm at that point where it's just like, then I have to be more Mexican than the Mexicans and more American than the Americans. Like, and I'm taking it back, you know, I want that. And that's something that's helped me grow. But it had to start in me. It had to start even with that childhood trauma, owning up to it, facing it, you know, and it helped me grow, letting whatever that trauma is, I'm not going to let you affect me anymore. And I'm not saying like it was a como se dice, de día de la mañana. So it's just like from this day to next day, like that change happens. It's a daily thing for me. I still fight it, you know, but I know I'm strong and I know I can make it through. And, you know, like, once you have depression, you're always going to have it. You know, once you have those thoughts, you always have those thoughts. But what we need to recognize is that we're stronger than when we were in those weak moments, you know, in those lonely moments. You know, we're a lot stronger. You know, we made it this far. We can make it a lot more. And just giving yourself that strength, you know, for me, it was a revelatory moment. I was on a cruise last year with my family. I was grateful. Like, we were in a good place. You know, this was the first time some Mexican family went on a cruise. Like, we couldn't believe it, man. Like, I didn't know what vacations were as a kid. You know, so I was grateful. I was like, we got room service. What the hell is that? Like, yo, like, it was cool. We were ordering fries, watching Disney movies and all that. But and there was a moment where I just took some time for myself, and I just looked at the sky, and it was beautiful sky, the ocean, you know, it was a full moon. So you can see everything is lit. It's lit up and it's beautiful, and it's just infinite. Yeah. And there was just a moment where I was just like, God, like, man, I need strength, man. You know, I've been asking for this ever since I was a kid, you know, and because there's a lot of struggles, you know, that we go in here and it's just like, no one will understand you, but it's only you, you know, and it's frustrating because you try to explain it, you can't. And so there was that moment where I was putting that faith in God, like, please, I hope you understand me in this, you know. And you know, he responded back and he told me, hey, Max, like, the strength has always been in you. And it was like a fire just got lit in me, because it was just like, it's always been in me. I made it this far because that little strength that I asked God, I thought he gave me. No, it was just in me. When God's glory is us, and if we let our light shine, who we are, our essence, whoever we are, whatever we believe in, but we believe is good, that's coming from God, and just let that shine. Our paths, everybody's paths, I've come to learn that everybody's paths is going to be completely different. When you pray, Nate, and you find direction for you and your family, like, you're probably gonna I'm gonna go right, and I'm gonna be like, when I'm praying for mine, it's gonna be I'm gonna go left. It's like everybody's path is different. But if we all just cling to whatever is good for us, just go there. God's gonna guide us, and that's where I'm at. I'm in a really grateful time in my life where I'm grateful for him to enlighten me about letting me know that the strength has always been in me, the Mexican the fire that I have for being Mexican has always been in me. Like I remember growing up with all the music that I listened to and all the experiences that I had, and now just putting it all together right now, and and just accepting every part of me, a good balance, spiritually, materialistically, every kind of way. We all have to have that balance, and I don't know. It's been a growing process, and I'm not saying I'm perfect because I'm not, and like I said, I still have those daily battles, and but I'm grateful for those moments now where I felt bullied, I felt ridiculed, I felt ashamed, I felt alone, because they're helping me become and be, the person I want to be, and the example I want to be to everybody, and to the world, and the best way I could express that is actually through singing. That's how I love to do it. But yeah, sorry, I talk a lot, man.
Wow. Can I chime in real quick?
Yeah.
Wow. First off, beautiful. Well said.
Right. Poetic.
Amazingly said. I was just gonna say, you know how back in the day, like in the LDS church, they're like, there's always one person that this message was for. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it was Elder Bednar.
You know what I mean? I feel like that. I feel like your message, like I feel like I received it a lot right now. You know what I mean? Like I struggle a lot with depression, anxiety. And so I think like something about your message of like how you work through your own and like the daily battle, but also like owning your childhood trauma. I don't know. I just wanted to say, like, as a person who just received your message, I know I'm on the podcast with you, but as a person who received your message, I'm grateful for you sharing it. And I know somebody else probably will be as they listen as well. Oh, yeah. But I just had to chime in and say that because I really appreciated what you had to say.
Thank you.
As an interviewer, I really
Absolutely.
did.
And me too, man. I'm very grateful for you sharing. And like, I can relate to a lot of what you talked about with, especially with the part with your relationship with your father. Because like my friends know my relationship with my father is not good. And it's through no fault of mine. Like I did everything that I could to help that relationship. And because of the type of person that he is, same thing. I will never be enough to satisfy like whatever, his idea of a perfect son or perfect daughter or whoever is, right? Just because like those expectations are always changing and evolving. But now it's like melded with like his own issues to the point where it's like not even within like a realm of reason, to where like there's no repairing that relationship unless he goes through like some drastic changes and begins to see the world in a different point of view. But what you talked about with basically just like owning, like owning your mental health, owning your identity. I went through that same thing.
Yeah.
And it took some therapy for me to do that. Cause I remember I carried a lot of anger with me all the time, like anger at white people, anger at myself, anger at my parents, like anger at like everyone around me. And I remember talking with my therapist, and I don't remember what I was venting about, but I was just like this and this and this and my dad and this and that, da 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 da. And he's like, it sounds like you want validation from your dad. And I was like, yeah, I do want validation from my dad. He's like, well, too bad, you're not gonna get it. And I was like,
like, what? Well, therapist,
I'm not going to get the validation. He's like, yeah, you're not going to get it from him, and you need to accept that. And once I did that, and I accepted, oh shoot, like I have to be myself, and I also have to accept that he is going to be himself, and that like that's not going to change.
Word.
And so like once I realized, and I applied that to my entire life, so I realized I'm going to be me. People are going to be people, and if that doesn't mesh up, then that's okay. I don't have to allow that into my life. I can allow things into my life that mesh with who I am as a person.
Yeah.
And that took me on like that started a major journey for me of like learning who I was, learning to accept myself, learning to accept the people around me. But that began a major journey for me. So I can definitely relate to that
and
same
you
journey.
validated yourself, man. Yeah. Like that was the most important person you need to validate. Because I seek so much attention from my dad. Like, you know, like I wanted his validation.
Yeah.
But you just come to recognize that the validation has to come from you. Like you have to validate yourself. Like, I'm proud of you, Max, or I'm proud of you, Nate. You know, like you've come this far, like you can make it farther. You know, so it's
beautifully said by y'all.
I feel
it's so interesting because like for me, it's my mom. I didn't grow up with my dad like in my house. So for me, it's like my mom who was that person for me. But it's interesting because a few months ago, I got to a place one night and I was like, my mom was never changing. You know what I mean? Like there's certain things my mom does that would just make me crazy growing up. You know what I mean? Like oftentimes it correlated to like me feeling like I'm not good enough. And I eventually just had to realize, like y'all are just mentioning, like my mom is going to be my mom. Like she has not changed in the last 23 years of my life. Like in this specific way, like obviously she's changed, yes. But like in this specific way, she hasn't changed. But it's like, but that's just who she is. You know what I mean? I feel like that's helped me give a lot more grace to a lot of people. Because it's like, my girlfriend eats ice all the time.
Yo, me too.
Bro, I love ice. Bro.
Okay, so I guess a lot of people just eat ice.
Crazy on ice, always.
And me and my family, we don't like smacking or like the sound of noise.
Oh yeah,
there's something very minute, right? But it's like
irrational anger.
Yo, that's mixing it too. Like my dad always say, he's like, don't be eating like cows, like mouth open. Like we got hit for that mug, or like even like the. Just making it just like
okay, that West sound is actually worse.
Irrational, but it's like a genetic thing.
Okay,
like,
well I got it.
23andMe, yeah, it's like a genetic thing where you like get irrationally angry at the sound of people eating.
Yeah, me and my family, we definitely have that because me and my brother, we get drove like crazy about it. But it's like you have to just accept certain things. Like some people just eat loud. Some people just say this certain thing until they're not trying to make you feel like you're not good enough. But that's what you receive. Yeah. And I feel like that's what I realized with my mom too, is like, just how y'all mentioned is like, my mom isn't trying to make me feel less than or whatever. And that's what I'm receiving. Absolutely. Yeah. But it's like, once I realized that though, like you said, it started me on my own. I'm still on the journey of repairing my relationship, but it's like, that started me on my own journey as well of like, okay, like, cool. Okay, I can do this actually. Because I'm seeing you with a lot more grace. Yeah. And also like, I would not have been as good with 5 kids at 26. So, you know, I have to give my grace where it lands. Anyways, just wanted to chime in on that.
And you're building from those good moments, you know, those good memories, you know, because but also owning up to those bad ones and not letting those affect us anymore, you know. But it's a daily battle, man.
Hey, wow. I feel like I've been part of my healing process just in this podcast.
No, for real.
I'm gonna talk about this tonight with my people.
This is I was not expecting to be this edified
at all. I was honestly, I was like this because my mental health has been really bad lately, especially since everything happened. So I was like this close of not being like, Nate, I don't know, bro. Yeah. But I was like, no, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go. So I'm edified. Thank you for.
Hey, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Max, man. You hooked it up today. You got us on a good conversation.
Right.
I feel like it's the time for like the look in the camera, the eye ring mouth smack. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about? Where like whenever he starts to tear up, he'd be like smacking the microphone ASMR style. Y'all are enough. If you're watching the podcast, we love you. Yes. You are enough.
Absolutely.
And hopefully you've learned some things from what we talked about, because we've just been going without paying any kind of attention to what we were talking about.
But it's been beautiful.
It has been. Very poetic.
Yeah. And just remember, like, saying it to the crowd, you know, the power, the strength, the fire has always been in you, you know, and I really, really believe that now. But it takes work, you know. Like you said, you went to therapy. I went to therapy, you know. It takes work. We have to put our effort into it. But I'm one of those that's always late. I'm on Latino time, brown time, whatever. You know?
Absolutely.
And it's comforting to know that when you're late and somebody else is late, you're just like, I got the buddy that's late with me. Like, we're good. We'll walk in together. Like, we'll take the fire together. You know what I'm saying? So it's super comforting to know that. And I say this to everybody in the audience too, like, you're not alone. You know, maybe my experiences aren't the same. Maybe you're not even similar, but just like, you're not alone, you know, and whatever you're going through, or just cling on to my words, like, you are loved and you are wanted here in this earth. Sorry, I get emotional, but it's just like, it just brings back all those emotions back again, you know, as a kid, like, you are worth it, because I feel like I'm telling it to my little kid self, you know, like, Max, tú sí eres un rey, tú sí lo puedes hacer, o sea, tú puedes lograr todas las cosas que quieres lograr en esta vida, you know, and I say that to my Latinx family, you know, whatever situation you're from, and to everybody too, like, man, you're wanted and you're loved in this world, you know, and we want you here, and yeah, like, you're beautiful. Like, one of the things that impacted me, and we talked about this too, Wakanda Forever.
Oh yeah,
there was an
conversation.
interview that Teno Cuerta had, and he said, he's just like, I just want to tell every brown little boy and girl, you know, that they're beautiful, that you can make it, you know, and it's just beautiful knowing that, and the blessings that God has for us, for our people. You know, even going back to that spirituality, one of the things that I've come to identify, and I really want to share this too, is, we're literal descendants of the tribes of Israel. We're not adopted in this, you know, our people, you know, just like your people are. Like, y'all were the closest to the Savior, you know, and I think that's beautiful. And whatever we believe in, whatever religion, whatever God, like, at the end of the day, that greater spirit, like, believe what you believe, believe what's good. It'll lead you to good, you know. God is light and he's in everywhere. And that's one thing I believed. I've come to identify myself, even, it's hard, especially talking about the topic of the LDS church, you know. But I do want to share this, at least personally, with me, because my best friend asked me this too. It's like, dude, why do you stay? You know, and this is just for me. It's just what it says in that Book of Mormon. I really feel like it was meant for my people. You know, we're talking about the Native Americans. We're talking about the Mexicans and their ancestors. We're talking about Mayans, Aztecs, Toltecas, Incas, you know, like, all these tribes, like, those blessings. Man, I'm sorry, but white people were adopted with that, with those, but those blessings were for our people. Like, it's not a coincidence that there's more colored people here in Utah. Like, have y'all noticed that there's, like, even, like, a lot of wards growing, like Latino wards? There's, like, a ton of them, and it's just, like, super cool. And the reason why I say is, yeah, there are things I don't agree with, you know, but sometimes change has to come from the inside, you know, and I feel, and now I do it just for, like, I just felt like a personal, just identifying with that, you know, with the Book of Mormon, at least with more in an indigenous way, you know, and practicing religion how my ancestors practiced it, not like a Western civilization practicing religion, like, you know, even getting more in tune with who I am, where my ancestors come from, and that's why I say, like, I'm excited with this path that I'm in, you know, because it's helping me understand that my path is completely different than everybody else's.
Right.
And there's so many good people. And that's one thing that even I want to say, even to the members of the church watching, you know, I'm sorry, but saints aren't just in the Mormon church. There are saints everywhere. And they might have different deities. They might have different beliefs or whatever. But saints are just good people. And I really want them to see that and understand that, you know, you're not the only ones in this world. You know, we all have our struggles. We all go through our things. And that's one thing that's helped me at least bridge that gap, especially with that hate with, like, you know, the white people, you know, and but also understanding, you know, where I come from and those strengths. Like, I've had cool experiences going to the pyramids in it's just crazy going to the pyramids in Chichen Itza. I also want to go to the pyramids in Guatemala. Like, they're beautiful. You know, like the ones in the ones in Mexico City, Teotihuacan, and there's a pyramid of Quetzalcoatl, and they call him Quetzalcoatl, and they call him the feathered serpent, the white feathered serpent that came and said he was going to come again, and it was just cool seeing just like the cool different experiences. Like you see the temple, and then there's like 12 temples around that. And it's just it's super cool, and
cool, yeah.
it's interesting. But yeah, that's just one thing I wanted to share. Like that's one of the beautiful things, that's because another part was actually just hatred towards, even in the members of the church. So I had to own up to a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
And also letting them know, like, I'm not gonna let a lot of the ignorant things that I grew up with affect me anymore. I'm gonna be who I'm gonna be. I'm gonna believe what I believe is right, and I think that's important for everybody to know too. Like, if you believe in something and that's your fire, cling on to it, make that happen.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, God made you unique in your own unique way. So let that uniqueness shine. Like, I was just on my way here, I was just thinking about if people aren't agreeing with you, then you're doing something. Like if people aren't talking smack about you or not agreeing with you, then maybe you're doing something wrong. Like, you have to have that oppositeness, because you have to know that I'm on a different path and people aren't going to think the same way I am. But but it's just holding on to whatever that belief is, and accepting all those things we grew up with. But yeah, sorry, like I said, I talk a lot, man.
Good, man.
Honestly, hey, I'm just listening.
Right.
Just sitting here.
It's we probably do need to wrap it up though.
Yeah, I love it.
No, honestly, I've enjoyed. One thing I love about talking with people is you hear some of the most beautiful things. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I think when you give somebody a mic, like, after a while, they start saying some very beautiful things. You know what I mean? Sometimes,
well,
not always.
If as long as you're not on BYU campus.
On the curb though, next to it,
yeah,
you're gonna say some things.
Right. They don't say beautiful things.
No, but like, I feel like a lot of people just have beautiful stories.
Yeah.
And I think as we all individually grow, like, the reflections that come from those stories end up being so beautiful. And I just like hearing them, because the reality is we go through different experiences and take the same feelings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're all going to take some anxiety, some depression, some happiness, some sadness, some whatever it is, some regret from from these different situations that we have in life. And I think that's part of that healing process almost, is you hearing other people's stories, connecting with them. And now you get to learn, okay, I can grow by potentially doing what they did. You know what I mean? Like, okay, maybe I do need to do that. Anyways, I just think it's beautiful to listen. And I've been feeling that this interview for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Max, you got anything else you want to contribute, man?
No, man. If I start talking again, I ain't gonna stop. I might even start singing, man. Like, when you speak emotion to the mic, it's just like when you have that mic, I was just like, yo, that's me with singing, like that. Anyways, but yeah.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Well, if that's the case, then let's jump into recommendations.
Shall we?
Sebastian, you want to go first?
I can. My last recommendation was very good, in my opinion. Right, it was about Slurpees. But today, I'm gonna change it up. Today, I'm gonna go with. What should my recommendation? I had one earlier, so let me get it to my brain.
I can go in the meantime.
You go in the meantime.
All right, cool.
Before I come up with mine.
So, my recommendation for this week, I'm gonna just keep it simple, is to go out and reconnect with nature and really take advantage of this, these last few warm days.
On that, that's man. Real. That's
before
facts.
It gets cold, right? Yeah. And I love the cold personally. Like, I enjoy being in cold weather. I grew up in Michigan, and some of my favorite days were days when the Michigan snow would fall and you just heard nothing. And I literally those would be I used to walk to the gym, to the local rec center and play basketball. But I would walk and I would wrap myself up. I'd have a scarf wrapped around my face and I'd just be walking through the snow, a mile and a half maybe.
Wow.
And it would just be completely quiet.
It's cool.
And those times were some of the times that I just found the most peace, just being outside in the cold, right? But it's still warm out right now, or warmer. Just go outside and take a chance to just really enjoy the beauty of nature. There's so much beauty and peace and spirituality within nature. It's just an amazing way to connect.
That's a good recommendation.
Yeah, and also, you know, there are natural things that you can do that increase the experience that you have.
That's
you
funny.
know, but yeah, those things just they always make me very reflective and just make me able to, you know, like one of the times I'm most reflective is like when I'm around a campfire. I don't know what it is about fire, but that should be making you think, man. You should be sitting there staring into the flames, just
for real,
evaluating your entire life. So take this time to go out in nature and just enjoy these last few days of warmth that we have. That's my recommendation.
That's a great recommendation.
Yeah.
I sat in the mountains for like two hours today.
Okay, yeah.
It was beautiful. Okay, I have my recommendation.
Did you hike the Y?
I drove up because I don't really walk that much. Yeah, my recommendation is this actually. Is go to local high school sport games.
Let's go. Yeah, those
like
get wild.
I forgot how much I loved high school sports because when you're going to high school sports, this is everything to these kids.
Yeah.
Like their whole world is their sport.
And their parents sometimes.
And their parents sometimes, let's be real. And my brother's a track coach at a high school. And so today I was just at a soccer game and last week I was at a volleyball game. It was just so refreshing. You know what I mean? If you love sports, I love sports. It's super cheap and it's very easy to do just to experience like a fun, eventful, but also like it's a quick 2-3 hour thing. And you can just watch some sports for like $2 and you can cheer on some kids. So it's always good. So that's my recommendation.
Love it. All right, Max.
All right, my recommendation.
You.
Yo, you talking about nature. So I right now, just to support all the singing things and all the dreams I got going, I'm actually working in a roofing company. Cool. Shout out to Powerhouse Roofing. I just got to give that shout out to my buddy here. Like,
you need your roof done.
Yeah, he's helped me out actually. Just been a good example with me to use that drive, make impossible things happen. And one thing we've been doing actually as a team, we've been going every Monday and polar plunging in the Provo River.
Oh wow!
And it's been a crazy experience, kind of finding comfort and joy in a really uncomfortable, really cold situation, you know. And that's one thing. Yeah, that's one thing I recommend is find that uncomfortableness and do it. Find a comfort in the uncomfortable. That's one thing I recommend. That's one thing I'm trying to work on every day. Just, you know, those uncomfortable things that we know we need to do, like follow your gut, like, you know what you need to do, do it, you know, and do that uncomfortable thing. And maybe to train yourself into following more of that essence of you, you know, go outside and do some uncomfortable things that you might be scared of. You know, if it's skydiving, go skydiving, you know, or whatever. You know, go out in the cold, you know, bundle up, but find a peace in it, you know. That, and I also recommend y'all go in, because my mom works hard for this. Like she has a Mexican restaurant. My parents have a Mexican restaurant. So go to Brasa's Mexican Grill. Like I'm not kidding.
I've been to Brasa's.
They've always promoted this by word of mouth. They're old fashioned, so they never like market it.
Yeah.
And we've actually been scammed by a lot of marketers.
Oh wow,
BYU students. But
that's actually crazy.
Yeah. Anyways, my dad got tired of it, so it's just always been word of mouth. Anyways, shout out to her because she works day and night for that restaurant to stay afloat and to be the good quality that it is. Like there really is, at least in the county, like no other restaurant that has an original menu. I don't know if that makes sense. Like original items. And
Mexican
so I recommend y'all go in there. Go try the Aztec French fries. Man, those fries are so good. Like y'all going to Rancheritos, go there and get some better French fries. Like for real, man.
Absolutely.
And there's like a Tijuana burrito, which is like carne asada with onions, tomatoes, chipotle sauce, and mayonnaise. You know, get that mouthwater. You go to Brasa's Mexican Grill. Like I'm telling you,
come on, everybody go. Yo, go on next week.
This weekend.
But yeah, I recommend you.
Literally going soon.
Let's
get together and go.
I will go.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I've seen it so many times.
Yeah.
So when you say it, I'm like,
all the time.
Yeah, I know what that is.
I think they have I haven't worked there in a minute, but like I think from 4 to 5 they have a happy hour.
Okay.
Not with the margaritas, but with the taquitos. So they're buy one get one free. So let's go.
That's
like
I will know. Yeah, absolutely. We should actually.
We're gonna have a Black Ministers Day. At
No, for real. We can get.
Let me know, and I'll tell my mom to like section out like everything, and have that out for y'all to celebrate.
Yeah, that'd be
cool. I'll even sing for y'all too. I'll just be up there, you know.
Please do.
We can. Yo, Nate has a voice.
He does. He sings very well.
Also, I gotta say before I forget, jumping into the Provo River on an October morning is crazy.
Insane.
Because that hole was frigid in July. And you out here going every week.
Because we were suffering.
Right. Listen, I commend you for that.
For real.
That's some bravery right there. The best I can do is take a hot shower and then I turn it a little bit at a time until it's cold.
No, right.
And then I get out.
I put my face under. After I wash my face, I rinse it off with cold water. That's like that is my polar plunge every day.
I'm the same way, especially when it goes down your back. Like that's why it was super uncomfortable for me. But you know, we started doing this on Mondays because Monday's the hardest day. Yeah. Monday's the day we hate the most.
Ain't it?
And if you don't start it good, you're probably not gonna have a good week. It's not. It's how your attitude is. So if you start out your day a Monday morning, you know, going at 6 a.m., jump in that uncomfortableness. Do something that you're not comfortable with. You have a win. You know, you won the day already. So now it's just consistent wins. Give yourself more opportunities just to do little wins, little tests like that. And you know, it's helped me. Like honestly, when I noticed that when I don't go on the polar plunge. And how my week is in performance in every kind of way, like, you know, spiritually, at work and everything, to when I do, it's a different change, you know, because I started a Monday with a win.
That's
you know, so
like that.
It is, yeah.
Good stuff. Well, you got anything else?
I got nothing.
Cool. With that,
we good.
We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. You are enough. The strength and the power is within you.
Come on.
And with that, we'll catch y'all next week.
Bye. Let's go.
That was powerful.